Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Famularo. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a career coach in the Center for Career Development. Welcome to our job search lab focused on the industries of healthcare and wellness. I will be your presenter for today's session. To give you some information about what we're planning on covering, here's a quick agenda. First, we're going to talk about some common myths about the job search process and hopefully bust some of those for you. Second, we'll talk about evaluating your skills, especially as they relate to the jobs that you might be seeking. Third, we'll talk about the keyword search because that's a very integral part of the process. And last but certainly not least, we'll talk about where to search, especially in the fields of healthcare and wellness, and go over relevant resources. Jumping right in, the first myth that I want to talk about today is there are no jobs out there and or no one is hiring. This is a myth that I've heard quite a bit recently due to the pandemic, and while of course the economy has been suffering and there has been job loss and cuts in various areas, according to research done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the fields of healthcare and wellness are actually projected to continue growing with more jobs and more opportunities through the year, at least the year 2030. And so if you're looking for a career in this field, that is something that you have kind of working in your favor. And as long as you're putting your best foot forward and looking in the right places, there are definitely going to be opportunities out there for you. The next myth is that job boards are the only or best place to find jobs. And when I refer to job boards here, I'm talking about websites like Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, Google Jobs, where they aggregate jobs and present them all to you in one place. While these are great resources and definitely should be incorporated into your job search, I would argue that they're not the only and or best place, and let me tell you why. When you're approaching the job search, there are two different approaches that you can have. One being the passive approach, where you sort of wait for jobs to come to you. And an active job search is where you are being proactive and you're going out and building connections with people, building connections with companies, and preceding potentially job opportunities that might be available at those organizations. And I would argue that as a college student who is soon to be graduating, the best job search approach is one that incorporates both of these. And to dive into that a little bit further, here's some data that shows why the active job search is particularly important. If you apply to a job on a job board, you have approximately a 1 in 250 chance of getting hired based on studies that have been done. If you are working on building a relationship with an organization and you apply directly through their website, you have about a 1 in 33 chance of getting hired. But if you're at the point where you have a relationship with someone at that company and someone is able to provide you with a personal referral, that gives you a 1 in 10 approximately chance of getting hired. So the more networking, relationship building connections you have, the more likely you are in general to receive a job offer or to be hired by an organization. Speaking of networking, another myth I want to bust is I only need a network when I'm actively seeking employment. Going back to our conversation recently about the active job search, networking is a huge piece of the process and is a very critical component, but networks take time to build. So if you only start working on building your network when you're actively applying for a job, that's a very short time window. But if you were reaching out to that organization for the past couple of months and you've been able to have a phone call or a chat with someone there and they know you, and now that this job opportunity is available for you to apply for and they're comfortable with you at that point and they're willing to put in a good word for you, that's really how a network ends up, benefiting you in the long term. So having a network all the time is important, not just when you're actively seeking employment, and it's never too early to start. Next, I need to have an internship to get a full-time job. While I would say that you do need to have some experience and some skills to bring to the table, I would say that those don't need to be in the form of an internship, especially because depending on the type of healthcare profession you're looking at, internships might not be available in that field because as a student you might not have the appropriate qualifications. I would say that's particularly relevant in patient care positions. But as long as you have some experience and you have some skills that you can bring with you to the table, I think you're good to go, and we'll talk a little bit more about skills later. Next, employers don't prefer hiring students who are taking a gap year. This is definitely not true. Gap years are becoming more and more popular these days and can really be viewed as an enrichment year or an enrichment couple of years for students who are interested in pursuing med school or any other type of additional education down the road. as long as you are very intentional about the type of opportunities you're seeking in a gap year and you are not coming across to an employer as you're quote unquote using them to get experience, or that you're only applying to them because you need a job for a shorter period of time and then you're going to move on, then, you shouldn't really have any concerns in this regard. Gap year is a very valuable decision, a very intentional decision that a lot of students make, and employers these days really are not looking on that as a negative. And last but not least, one last myth that I want to address is the Career Center doesn't have jobs or employers related to health and wellness. This is also not true. We have a lot of wonderful employer partners in this industry. We have a lot of jobs posted on our job website that are related to healthcare and wellness that we found through our partner employers. I'll give a few examples later, but I hope that this presentation today is evidence that we do, and we hope that you stay connected with us in order to build relationships with our employers and our open positions in this industry. Whether you know what you want to do career-wise or you're still exploring your options, evaluating your skills is a really important part of the job search process to know what skills you're qualified for and what positions you're qualified for and what positions you might be interested in. So let's talk about that for a little bit. When you begin having conversations with employers as a part of the job search process, it's important for you to be able to talk about what skills you'll offer to their company or organization. On one hand, you're going to want to consider transferable skills, which are skills that you might have gained from your academics, your campus involvement, your past jobs, your volunteer experiences, etc., that you can bring with you into the field of healthcare. And your job-related skills might be skills that are specific to the field of healthcare that you've gained throughout maybe your classes or past healthcare-specific opportunities you've had that you're going to bring to the table as well, because employers value both of these skills very heavily, and the more you have, the more appealing you might be to an employer. So some examples of transferable skills you might want to consider are listed here on the screen. These are some of probably the most common ones that I've seen. And the four that I've highlighted here, interpersonal, problem-solving, teamwork, and verbal communication skills, are four that are, I would say, particularly relevant to the field of healthcare and wellness because of how important it is to be able to not only interact with patients or clients in a healthcare facility, but also work as a team with other healthcare professionals and providers. So having skills in those areas from other positions would definitely be important for you to highlight in your job search. And then also problem-solving skills and critical thinking are things that you need to have as a healthcare professional because, every patient or situation you're dealing with is going to be different from the last. And so being able to problem solve is very important. Some examples of job-related skills might include the information you see here on the screen, like lab skills, research skills, medical terminology, specific software programs, and there are also a couple of blank squares here for you to enter any that you might have experience on your own in relation to the job that you're looking for. This list also might be enhanced by looking at actual job descriptions for the jobs that you're applying for and seeing if there are skills that are listed repeatedly in those jobs, and those might be things that you need to work on or get familiar with because they are obviously being sought after in your field, so that's something to keep in mind as you're going throughout this process as well. As I mentioned previously, the keyword search is an integral part of the job search process, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. When you are using job boards to find either positions to apply for or to serve as a starting point for you to dive into a more active job search process, finding the right keyword to use is very important. Otherwise, you might not be able to come across jobs that might align with your interests or your skill set. So in terms of some guidance on what types of keywords to use, take a look at the list on the left-hand side of this screen. Some things that you might want to consider are the field or industry you want to work in, the location, your desired job title, industry-specific skills, tools, or jargon, company names, and or job type. And you'll notice that little note at the bottom that says use synonyms. That's really, really important because synonyms might mean the same thing, but might be used by different companies and might bring up like totally different responses to your various searches. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you could see some examples. It kind of goes from most broad to most specific as we go down the list. So if you wanted to start off with a keyword search as broad as patient or medical, that's great. That might show you a wide variety of jobs in the industry, and you can sort of narrow it down from there. If you know a little bit more specifically what you're looking for, you might be able to type in something like gap year programs in healthcare, Connecticut healthcare gap year jobs. Those are more focused on the job type and the location, which might be helpful for you if those are things that you've already ironed out. And then last, but certainly not least, we have the two examples there that say medical assistant positions in Connecticut and patient care associate Hartford Hospital. Those are really specific. Those know the exact position title. The last one even knows the exact company name. So if you have that in mind, you can definitely use those as a part of your job board as well. But my biggest advice overall is, regardless of what keywords you use, it's important to keep track of them, because you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're just like trying keyword after keyword after keyword and you're not remembering which ones are effective and which ones aren't, and which ones get you a lot of results versus which ones get you fewer results, or which results are more accurate. So if you keep track of your keywords and really especially pay attention to the ones that work really well, that will save you probably some headaches down the road and make the process of using job boards a lot easier. So at this point, I would recommend kind of pausing and taking a self-inventory of what you might use as your own personal keywords. We have a list of 8 here. It doesn't necessarily have to be 8. It can be more. It can be less. But going into the job search process, having those keywords ready to go is really important, so that you can, try them out and continue to refine them over time. So if you haven't already taken the time to think about it, go ahead and do that now. The last section that we have to review together today is a section about where to search for jobs in healthcare and wellness. So let's jump into the resources. First and foremost, definitely want to mention Handshake. For those of you who are not familiar with Handshake, Handshake is UConn's e-recruiting platform, which is where all of our employer partners post opportunities that are available to UConn students. On Handshake, we have internships and full-time jobs. We have things that are based in Connecticut, virtual, based in other states, based in other countries even sometimes. And like I mentioned, the benefit of Handshake is that it is curated specifically for UConn students. So definitely hop on Handshake, definitely take a look at the various jobs that we have posted, and we do update the platform every day, so checking Handshake should definitely become a part of your regular routine to make sure that you don't miss out on anything that we have available. Another platform that I mentioned earlier that's a great one to use for the industry of healthcare and wellness is LinkedIn. The great thing about LinkedIn is that there are people on LinkedIn as well as jobs, so that's one unique feature in comparison to a lot of the other job boards that are out there. So if you find a position at, let's say, Hartford Hospital that you're really interested in, you can also look to find people who work at Hartford Hospital and have that be part of your networking strategy like we were talking about earlier. So that is a great reason to use LinkedIn for the job search process as well, in addition to everything else that we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides. In terms of some healthcare-specific resources, on this slide you can see a number of resources that are geared towards healthcare service and volunteering type of organizations. So the idea here is, if you are interested in any of these organizations, you can go directly to their website and take a look at all of the service programs that they have available, or the service-oriented positions, and apply that way. But like we were talking about earlier, going to the company website might be a more beneficial place to find, or easier place to find these opportunities than going through some of the job boards where these opportunities might not pop up. In addition, if you're interested in healthcare research, these are some of the big names in that field, especially some that are based in Connecticut. NIH has some great opportunities, NARAP has some great opportunities, and Hartford Healthcare has a really big research component as well. This is just a list of examples. There are definitely others, but these are 3 that you can definitely check out. In addition to that, we have a few resources that are just focused on healthcare jobs in general. So the American Public Health Association has jobs that are more focused on public health positions. We also have Health Corps, which is more focused on, again, kind of like a little bit more service but direct patient care focused roles. Scribe America, great organization for medical scribing positions that works very closely with UConn, as well as eClinical Works, which is a healthcare IT and technology organization, which also works very closely with UConn. So another great resource. But any of these plus any of the resources on the previous slides would be great places for you to start to find organizations and jobs that might be interested in hiring entry-level healthcare professionals. And before we close out today, I wanted to provide a couple of links to additional resources that might be beneficial for you if you are currently looking for positions in healthcare and wellness. The first link is to a list of our other webinars that we offer through the Center for Career Development, which can include webinars on resumes, cover letters, and interviewing, which are 3 very important parts of the job search process, so definitely check those out. The second link is to a series of programs that the Center for Career Development offers called Pathways to Healthcare. This is an event that takes place once a semester and features a panel of alumni who work in healthcare but did not go to medical school, dental school, PA school, or nursing school. So if you're not interested in those options but still interested in healthcare, great panel for you to take a look at. And all of the past recordings of that event are on that website. The third link is to our healthcare and wellness career community, which is simply a collection of information on our website about careers in healthcare and wellness. So if you're looking to do some research, see some jobs, some events coming up that might be interesting to you, check that out. It's a great resource. And then last but certainly not least, we have a great relationship with the Pre-Med and Pre-Dental Advising Center here at UConn. So if you are not already connected with them and you're interested in pre-med, pre-dental, pre-PA, or pre-professional schools in general, they're a great resource and have a lot of great information on their website as well. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Healthcare and Wellness Focused Job Search Lab. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to us via the contact information provided at career.uconn.edu. We look forward to continue working with you, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day.